The conference room fell silent as the billionaire slammed his hand against the polished oak table, his voice echoing across the glass walls overlooking the city skyline. "Who made this plan?" he demanded, staring at the charts projected on the screen. Revenue losses had finally stopped. Customer satisfaction was rising for the first time in years. Employee retention had reached record highs. Investors were celebrating. But the answer he received was one he never expected to hear. "The single dad you suspended 6 months ago," one executive whispered. For a moment, even the air seemed to stop moving. The man everyone had overlooked, dismissed, and pushed aside had become the reason an entire company was surviving. Before we begin this emotional journey, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales if you believe kindness, compassion, and second chances can change someone's life forever. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach people who need hope the most. Morning sunlight poured through the windows of a small apartment on the edge of the city as Adrian Mercer carefully braided his daughter's hair before school. 7-year-old Nora sat quietly on a kitchen stool while her father balanced making breakfast, checking emails, and preparing for another long day at work. Life had never been easy since his wife passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness. Overnight, Adrian had become both mother and father, carrying grief in one hand and responsibility in the other. He worked as a mid-level operations analyst for a massive technology corporation owned by billionaire businessman Vincent Hawthorne. The company employed thousands, but for Adrian, it was simply a place that allowed him to pay rent, buy groceries, and keep his daughter smiling despite their difficult circumstances. Adrian possessed an extraordinary talent for solving problems. He noticed patterns others missed. He understood people as much as numbers. He believed successful businesses were built not only through profits but through trust, dignity, and respect for employees. Yet in a company obsessed with quarterly earnings and aggressive targets, voices like his rarely found space to grow. For years, Adrian quietly developed ideas during lunch breaks and late nights after putting Nora to sleep. He studied company data, interviewed co-workers, observed customer complaints, and designed an innovative plan to improve efficiency while reducing employee burnout. It was a strategy built around humanity instead of pressure. Flexible scheduling, mentorship programs, better communication systems, and customer-centered improvements formed the foundation of his vision. He wasn't trying to become famous. He wasn't chasing promotions. He simply wanted to create a workplace where people could succeed without sacrificing their health, families, or happiness. One spring morning, Adrian finally gathered enough courage to submit his proposal. Weeks passed. No response arrived. Then suddenly, he was called into a meeting with senior management. Adrian entered the room carrying hope. He left carrying humiliation. Executives dismissed his ideas as unrealistic. Some laughed at concepts they considered overly compassionate. Others claimed employees existed to meet demands, not receive accommodations. They questioned his authority, criticized his perspective, and suggested he should focus only on his assigned responsibilities. A few days later, an error occurred within his department. It was minor, easily fixable, and partly caused by outdated systems Adrian had repeatedly warned management about. Yet instead of addressing the root issue, leaders sought someone to blame. Adrian became the target. He was suspended indefinitely. The news devastated him. Losing income meant uncertainty for both himself and Nora. Their savings were already limited. Bills piled up. Rent approached. School expenses continued. Still, every morning Adrian woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast, walked Nora to school, and forced himself to smile. Children notice pain differently. One evening Nora hugged him tightly and said she loved him because he never stopped trying. Those words became the fuel that kept him moving. During his suspension, Adrian refused to surrender to bitterness. Instead, he continued refining his ideas. He volunteered at community centers, helped local businesses improve operations, and offered free advice to struggling entrepreneurs. People listened. People appreciated him. Slowly, Adrian discovered something powerful. Value does not disappear simply because someone fails to recognize it. Meanwhile, inside Hawthorne Technologies, problems intensified. Employee turnover increased dramatically. Customer complaints surged. Departments stopped collaborating effectively. Stress spread through the company like a storm cloud. Vincent Hawthorne, despite his immense wealth and success, struggled to understand what was happening. He had spent years building an empire through ambition, discipline, and relentless determination. But somewhere along the way, numbers had become more important than people. He rarely visited departments personally. He rarely spoke to employees beyond executives. He trusted reports more than conversations. By the time declining performance reached his attention, damage had already spread deeply. Desperate for solutions, leadership teams revisited old proposals that had previously been rejected. Among countless forgotten documents, one file resurfaced. Its title read, "Building Sustainable Success Through Human-Centered Operations." Author, Adrian Mercer. Executives examined the proposal. Then they read it again. Every challenge the company currently faced had been predicted inside those pages. Every solution Adrian recommended addressed existing problems. It wasn't merely an idea. It was a blueprint for survival. Management reluctantly implemented portions of the plan. Within weeks, productivity improved. Employees reported feeling motivated. Customers responded positively. Team morale strengthened. For the first time in years, optimism returned. That was when Vincent Hawthorne demanded answers. Who created this remarkable strategy? Who possessed such insight? And why had he never heard about this person before? The truth stunned everyone. The man responsible had been suspended. Ignored. Forgotten. Vincent ordered a complete investigation. As reports arrived, a painful picture emerged. Adrian had consistently demonstrated exceptional performance. He had submitted multiple recommendations over the years. He had advocated for employee well-being. He had identified system flaws long before failures occurred. Yet his contributions had been buried beneath corporate politics and ego. Vincent felt something unfamiliar. Regret. Not because profits had suffered, but because a good man had been treated unfairly. For the first time in decades, the billionaire realized leadership meant more than power. It meant responsibility. One bright afternoon, Vincent drove himself to Adrian's neighborhood. Luxury vehicles rarely entered those streets. Children played basketball nearby. Neighbors sat outside enjoying the warmth of the day. Vincent noticed peeling paint, aging buildings, and signs of ordinary families working hard to survive. He eventually found Adrian sitting on a bench outside a small park, watching Nora laugh while chasing bubbles floating through the sunlight. The image struck Vincent deeply. Here was a man carrying enormous burdens, yet choosing love over resentment. Hope over anger. Grace over revenge. Adrian looked older than his personnel photos. Exhaustion lingered beneath his eyes. But kindness still remained there. Vincent approached carefully. He expected hostility. Instead, Adrian simply listened. Vincent apologized. Not as a billionaire. Not as a CEO. But as another human being who had failed someone deserving respect. Adrian remained silent for several moments. He admitted the suspension had hurt. Not because of pride. But because it affected his daughter. Because every rejected idea represented hours sacrificed from precious time he could have spent with Nora. Because he had genuinely believed the company could become better. Vincent asked why Adrian continued helping others despite everything. Adrian glanced toward Nora. He explained that bitterness teaches children fear. Compassion teaches them courage. He wanted his daughter to grow up believing people could make mistakes and still choose to become better. Vincent felt tears threaten his composure. For years, he had been admired for building wealth. But this ordinary father possessed something far greater. Wisdom. Heart. Character. Several weeks later, Hawthorne Technologies held a company-wide gathering. Thousands of employees attended. Rumors spread throughout the building. People expected announcements about profits or expansions. Instead, Vincent walked onto the stage carrying a folder. He spoke honestly. He acknowledged leadership failures. He admitted employees had been treated as resources instead of human beings. Then he introduced Adrian Mercer. Applause erupted. Many workers recognized him. Some remembered his kindness. Others recalled moments when Adrian stayed late helping colleagues without expecting recognition. Vincent publicly reinstated him. Not as an analyst, but as Director of Organizational Development. More importantly, Vincent announced sweeping reforms based entirely on Adrian's vision. Flexible policies. Parental support programs. Mental health initiatives. Mentorship opportunities. Transparent communication systems. Fairer evaluations. The audience stood together, applauding for several minutes. Adrian looked toward the crowd. Then toward Nora sitting beside the front row, wearing a bright yellow dress and smiling proudly. For years, he had questioned whether his efforts mattered. Whether kindness still held value in a competitive world. That day provided his answer. Yes. It mattered enormously. Over the following years, Hawthorne Technologies transformed completely. Employee satisfaction reached historic levels. Innovation flourished. Communities benefited from new outreach programs. Families experienced greater balance between work and personal life. The company became known not only for success but for compassion. Journalists praised Vincent for embracing change. Yet Vincent always corrected them. He insisted the true architect was Adrian Mercer. The single father who refused to let hardship destroy his humanity. The employee who kept believing in people when others stopped believing in him. The man suspended for caring too much. And perhaps the most beautiful transformation occurred within Vincent himself. He began visiting departments regularly. He learned employee names. He listened more. Spoke less. He understood that leadership is not measured by the size of an office or the number of zeros in a bank account. Leadership is measured by the number of lives improved because you chose empathy over ego. Years later, Nora wrote an essay at school describing her hero. She did not choose a celebrity. She did not choose an athlete. She chose her father. She wrote that heroes are not people who never fall. Heroes are people who continue standing, loving, and believing even after the world tells them to give up. Her teacher cried while reading it. So did Adrian. Because every sacrifice suddenly felt worthwhile. Every sleepless night. Every painful rejection. Every uncertain morning. They had all led to this moment. A future built not upon wealth alone, but upon dignity, perseverance, and compassion. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales for more inspiring journeys about hope, resilience, and the power of kindness. Special request, comment below with, "Kindness always wins," if you believe one act of compassion can completely change someone's life. As the sun set beyond the city skyline, Adrian watched Nora run ahead laughing beneath the golden evening light. In that simple moment, he realized something extraordinary. Life does not always reward us immediately for doing the right thing.